Hello and welcome. It is July 24th, and we are sitting here inside of Meeting of the Crossroads, and I'm getting ready to speak a little bit about the current transits that are in play. I'm coming at this from the perspective of human design, gene keys, astrology, emotional bridges. Those are the four main ones that are in play in this particular part of the matrix. So let's see, just to give you kind of a brief layout, we've got Sun, Earth, Moon, North Node, South Node, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron. And then the moons that are down here, and that this brown color means that any of these ones that are marked in this like tannish brown are in retrograde. And there's quite a few of them, and we're going through a season where like one by one things are going into retrograde. Something that just happened that is really important to have as a baseline in this conversation is that with the full moon that we just experienced back on the 20th, our full moon and new moon cycles have switched. So for the past year and a half or so, we have been starting each month with completions, full moon, and we've been ending the month on new beginnings with new moons. And so things have been let's call it backwards. And we've been kind of walking backwards through different experiences where we first walk in and go, this is not what I want. And then we get shown things and then we go, oh, this is what I want, right? Which may or may not be anything like what we first thought. And now we've switched into that normal flow where now we're in a new moon stage. And so new moon is August 4th, and that's a new moon in Leo. And then on August 19th, we have an Aquarius full moon. Right? So Leo is going to help us birth and bring things in. And then Aquarius is going to show us where it's time for checks and balances. So kind of be aware of that while we have this conversation. We're simply 4 days outside of the full moon that we just had in Capricorn. And that Capricorn full moon was all about testing the foundations. Have we set enough limits? Have we followed through with our to-do list? Have we managed the pieces in our world that were the things that continuously pull us out of regulation, being regulated in ourselves, right? It doesn't mean that regulation is a constant goal, mind you, because we can't grow and still be consistently emotionally regulated. And Capricorn is the emotional earth goat, right? It's a sea goat. It's both emotional and earthy and grounded and non-emotional. So it's a kind of a mixture of both. It doesn't tend to necessarily have deep emotional expressions until it does. And then it tends to come right back out of that in a very sort of grounded and logical and sometimes can be emotionally bypassing of our own selves because it's so adhering to the what's next, what's the to-do list, am I measuring up, have I met the quota, so to speak. And so that's the energy that we just came out of. And now we've landed ourselves where the sun is in gate 31. Okay, we're looking at it in the 7th house. So let me tell you a little bit what that means. Sun-wise, that's where we're looking at 70% of the neutrino stream, meaning that's a lot. 70% of our energy is being routed through the sun. So knowing where the sun sign is a really key indicator, and the rest of them are still as large of a player as they normally are, and they play slightly different kinds of roles as far as that deep impact goes. So sun rules Leo, and we are in Leo, right? We're in gate 31. Gate 31 is the gate of influence. They also call it it's known as the gate of the president, the leader. You know, it is very much like this is the way this is a way that we can go. Its shadow is arrogance, so it can really like get ahead of itself. And we're sitting inside of that 7th house, and that 7th house has to do. I'm not even going to get into that in a moment. I will come back to the 7th house. 31 in the Leo side of things. This is where we speak. So this is all about how we're going to find a voice for our influence. Voice for how may I be of service? the best way to keep ourselves out of arrogance and out of the assumptiveness that can be very deeply destructive with this gate 31 is to ask how you can help, right? How can you help yourself? How could you help a situation? How could you help this person that you know? How could you help this conflict that you all of a sudden find yourself in the middle of? Sometimes that help is to be quiet, is to say nothing. And sometimes it is to stand up and go, this is not fair. This is not just. This is not a good way to go. And remember, when we stand up in those ways, we get to be careful. We get to honor. We get to see how we can step up for injustices without making something else wrong. Two wrongs do not make a right in this process. I'm coming back to, so 31 is leadership, right? I'm just going to jump over real quick sideways here. And we're going to look at the gene key spectrums and the I Chings, right? This is mutual attraction, the I Ching of influence. Sounding your truth, the president, right? Arrogance, the world wide web of words. So we can get all wrapped up in all the pretty fun words. But if we are seeking to control through the use of words, right? If we are trying to remove someone else's right to a thing and instead insert our own, we aren't there yet. We want to be in heart branding, helping others to break out of their bonds when they're ready. When there is a bond that is able to be broken, we don't want to be putting people into bonds, right? And so we get to see how our actions, like earlier when I was speaking about the foundations and the connections and the expansion, that kind of three-way way of looking at how deeply we can step into engagements with each other when we can learn what it is that can be helpful to meet someone to help them break out of their bond. Sometimes simply being present and holding space is what a person needs, that foundational and center. Sometimes what they can really deeply resonate with and be helped by is a connection, is a shared story. And sometimes it is through expansion, through a, hey, mind if would it be okay if I offered an entirely different perspective here? And we get to earn that, right? Leadership is an earned thing. It's not just to like snap your fingers and expect people to bow down. It's an embodied thing. It's speaking your truth without overwriting someone else's. And here I love this. The essence is that the siddhi is humility. And there's a quote that Richard Rudd has said in the past that has always stuck in my head. Humility, true humility, would not balk at being called arrogant. It'd go, oh, where? It'd be curious. You know, it doesn't have a thing to prove. It doesn't get upset in that sense because it knows that it can't do anything wrong. Right? Looking over here at that essence affirmation. It's not about it being a wrong. It's about a consistent, never-ending growth process. We get to be with. This is a codon ring of no return, right? So this is part of that energy that is sort of scooping and shaping us energetically through a corridor where we have already said we want to go, and yet we tend to hesitate and dawdle. Okay, so I spent a chunk of time on the sun because it has such a deep and heavy influence. And this 31 is a really deep, powerful component that has it has an influence over the leadership side of the whole of our country, of the whole of our communities, of the whole of our families, of the choices that we make and the changes that happen to us and the way we are with ourselves and inside of our own life. And so this 31 is where we get to take personal, internal leadership responsibility. And I really love this gate, and it's very dynamic. It has a lot to say. Remember, it's part of the throat here. This throat center. Okay, so I wanted to pull up, just give me 1 second while I pull up one thing here. All right. There we go. Right. The places where you are probably going to see and hear and feel this energy is going to be in your partnerships, places where you are the closest to people. So if you are married, it might be your spouse, it might be your boyfriend, it might be your fiance, it might be a close friend or two. It's going to be the people that you have the deepest influence in, because that has to do with the seventh house. Seventh house is how you partner, an awareness of how you partner with others. And so you're either going to have influence in some of those places or not influence. Today, we're in line 1 of the 31. So it's investigative energy. It's going, can I be of service here? How about here? And it's like, I get the sensation of like very gently touching a Jenga tower. Can I move this block? Can this block move? Can this block move? And so it can very gently, verbally tiptoe its way through, or not. So line 1, it's a building foundations. Sometimes there's no foundations to be built in certain places, and those get to be honored as well. And so now we look at the earth, because the sun and the earth, they're running in opposition of each other. And we've got gate 31 in opposition of the 41, right? There's no house associated with the earth, because that's where we are right now. Wherever you are is where you're sitting in that 41 energy. And so it's the Leo Aquarius energy. It's a very interesting mix and combination. We've got root energy here. And so this is that root energy that's fueling energy towards that throat. And it's an energy that's based in hope. It's based in fantasy. It's based in imagination and visualization. It's based in seeing it in your mind's eye and then taking action on a thing. The hope is that the desired development is possible despite or because of restraints. This is an energy that can actually do really well with a little bit of friction, in a sense, a little bit of restraint, or a little bit of holding back or being held back, because it makes us ask more questions. It's also part of the sexual stream, right? Sexual hunger, fantasy, desire, sex simply for the sake of experience. So this might be a time where, you know, there's things that start to stir in strange ways, and being with the process, right? Remember, you're learning to become a deeper leader for yourself, while at the same time balancing this sense of building anticipation that comes along with the 41. Fantasy and anticipation is the shadow and the gift here. This is about downloading the morphogenic field. So it's about tapping into the infinite all of everything and the infinite all of nothing. To tap into Sabrina Lynn's rewilding connections and archetypal works that she's been doing over there. This tapping into the morphogenic field is being able to see where you exist inside that field of all of humanity. And it's always changing. We're always becoming different than who we are from 1 minute to the next. 1 minute I can be bawling on the floor, crying my eyes out. And the next minute I'm like, okay, it's time to go harvest and cut up the mugwort. Right? And I'm shifting in and out of these different ways of being. Some are emotional, some are mental, some are physical. And rather than seeing them as something that is wrong, I mean, don't get me wrong, they can feel hard. I'm learning to not see them as wrong, because if they're wrong, then I'm wrong. And that means I don't have a right to exist. And that's just simply not okay, because I'm giving away my power for free then. And that's just not on. It's not how it works. It's not doing honor and justice in here. The moon right now is in gate 22, line 4. It's probably heading towards like line 5 right now. That makes a lot of sense. And here we are talking about honor and dishonor, graciousness, right? We dishonor ourselves by belittling ourselves, by not deeply valuing ourselves, by not growing grace under pressure, learning and being with invitational languaging. I think this is in the solar plexus. Yeah, solar plexus. Openness, moodiness, right? This is our ability or not to be open. This is Piscean energy. So we got watery energy with the moon, which, you know, is very apropos. The moon is very happy. It's the waves, it's our habits, it's our emotions, it's the waters. but it's also asking us, where are we in a place of being able to be gracious with ourselves, while we're moving from our fantasy into anticipation and from our arrogance into leadership. So it's a big ask right now. It's a big, if you look at the global stage of things and our economics and our politics and what's happening overseas, the genocide that is happening, and looking at things through honest lenses, there is so much of this energy that is in play. We just a couple days ago switched with North Node and South Node into gate 17 and 18. That's opinions and judgment and farsightedness and integrity. So this is about taking on the world and having a sense of knowing that comes from the heart rather than only from the mind. The mind itself is much like a computer. It's, ones and zeros, and so bottom line that it doesn't have that je ne sais quoi, that certain something that brings it alive, right? We might call that spirit. Here in this case, we're calling it, Richard Rudd called it precognition via the heart. And so we drop down out of the mind and we bring it down into the heart. And in doing so, there's a unification that happens between those two. And now there's a different kind of truth that can come through. And so that moon energy has this north and south node, which is north node's our future vision and south node is our past. And it's the karma that we're now walking and moving through. So our future vision is this precognition from the heart, this farsightedness. And we're going to be stuck in a lot of places where there's going to be opinions after opinions being slathered around like butter. Right? This is they call this the closing of the third eye. It's also the discoverer. So it's about discovering, and we often find that through being closed, right? The moon's helping us to be open so we can discover where we are closed, so we can see where we have judgmental opinions, and we can step more deeply into farsightedness. It helps to step forward out of where our integrity has been locked away, right? Past karma locked away. This is something you have to repeat over and over again. You're going to go through all these judgments. What if we don't? What if we rewrite that journey? That looks like stepping into taking on the world, being able to call a thing. Like, what does Richard Rudd call this gift affirmation? I know your name, Rumpelstiltskin, is the affirmation he gave to this gate 18. That's calling a thing a thing. It's knowing its name. It's being able to call it out. It's being able to have that magic moment that lets you make a connection that creates a change. Right? No small things going on over here. We got Mercury, who's heading into its retrograde phase here in another 10 days or so. We're sitting in the shadow of it. So right now things are funny. I was born under a series of a great many retrogrades. So Mercury retrogrades kind of feel like home to me. I find I'm more easily able to talk and have compassion for other people where they are, and I can listen a little more differently. So for me, they feel like a lovely, not always lovely. Lovely is a matter of perspective, so never mind. They can be a lovely way of being able to see where our languaging internally and externally is evolving. Right now, this Mercury energy is inside of the water goddess, the abysmal. It is half-heartedness to commitment. And so we can be in this dilemma state of postponing things that we know need to be done or need to be said. And we can find ourselves in a victim of commitments or lack thereof, right? We can have overcommitted. We may also have found ourselves undercommitted and with not enough things to do that feel good to do. Where commitment is the business of luck, right? It's how we get to move through the magical moments in life where instead of being all the time wrapped in our pain, where we get to come in and out of it, right? We come in and out of it and we step deeper each time into next and new possibilities. we get this opportunity to have these rare moments where life's synergies just kind of line up, and synchronistic things begin to happen. And that's kind of what that energy of the 29 is all about, this business of luck. It's being committed to your inner guidance. It doesn't mean you're feeling perfect all the time. It means that you're committed to listening to that inside world and bringing it into a, well, here they would call it the pure expression of it. They call it devotion or tantric contagion, surrendering your identity to the one you love. Right? And so if the one we love is source or God or the infinite all of everything and nothing, if it is the totality, if it is the oneness of it, then surrendering our own individual identity isn't nearly so daunting, because it's kind of like going home. And that can feel so very different when we are sitting inside of the realm of the black and white mechanics of life. 29 in the mechanical side of things offers perseverance, right? It's our power of a yes. It's our determination and our steadfast commitment that welcomes new cycles, new experiences. This is a Leo Virgo kind of energy. We're sitting there right on the cusp between those two. It's all about discovery. It's a generating channel. So it's being able to have, so this is a voice that has energy behind it. It's in Mercury as a sacral energy. So there's almost like an energy, a transmittable energy behind our voice in these times. Venus is sitting in gate 7, and we're looking at it in the 8th house. Okay, so we were just looking at both of these in the 8th house. 8th house. 8th house is about circulating resources. It's about the movement of things between life and death, between sexuality and celibacy, between your money and other people's money. It's about sharing what you have, not sharing what you have, being shared with or not, right? And so all of those energies are playing in both Mercury and Venus. And so how we're sharing our communication energy, how we're sharing our perseverance, how we're sharing our strategy, how we're sharing ourself as it relates to being in interaction, how we are sharing our guidance. So here we're going to talk a little bit about the 7, gate 7. So for record, Venus and the Sun are right now creating a whole channel all by themselves. They create that 31-7 channel that goes from the G center to the throat, and it is the channel of leadership. I think if we come back here, pardon the rapid scrolling, yep, we've got the channel of the leader. It's also called the channel of the alpha, channel of facilitation. And so we've got guidance, we've got self and interaction paired with leadership, right? So we've got the balance between the two. We've got the president and the army, so to speak. 7 has more to do with natural leaders. It's group ordained, not self-ordained. Strategically arranging roles within society in order to cope with the future. So it's like saying, oh, you're really good at talking with people and listening to people. How about you go over here and help the people who really need to be heard and need to speak and need to hear something other than the sound of their own voice? And oh, you're really good at digging in the dirt. Maybe you can go help in the garden. You know, oh, this person over here is really great with being with people who are feeling really deep, heavy emotions, and they don't even need to speak. They can simply be with them. Maybe they can be with those people in this way. And so it's about being able to see where things can best align and to serve in that sort of way. And so that's how we're loving right now, because this is Venus, this is our values, this is how we have a deep expression with, of, and for, right? So we might be looking at ourself in relationship to sexuality, or ourself in relationship to progression of life. Like, what is my next stage of life going to look like? Am I in the middle of stepping into a different kind of rites of passage? Am I stepping into mother? Am I stepping into crondom? Am I stepping into facilitation? Am I stepping past a known zone for myself? Right? And knowing that Venus and that Sun, they're working together, right? That leadership and this alpha nature of things really wants discipline, finding what it is in your world that relates to the things that you value that are asking for a discipline behind them. Boy, do I feel that strongly in my world. I'm being asked to find a discipline with the enormity of the things that I can feel and still bring it into, something that comes again and again to a place of being in a place of joyful, delighted service. So that's the Venus side of things. We've also got Mars, right? So Mars is sitting over here on the sort of other side of things from Venus, where Venus is this soft energy and movement through, and it's sitting in Leo right now, which is kind of a little bit of a fiery energy for what Venus normally likes to work with. And we've got Mars that's sitting in Gemini. So our conflict and our growth and our like kind of nature has a split personality currently or more, and it's about helping us come into alignment with what is metamorphosizing for us, what is present in our world. 820 is about presence. We get to move through superficiality, where superficiality is like where I wanted to say it's like where we can't find words. And I also hesitate to say that that is a superficiality, because words are not the only form of expression by any means. And superficiality may take a form in silence, it may take a form in a difficulty, in a reluctance to step in deeper, to open up wider and be vulnerable. It is one thing to be honest, it's another thing to be transparent, and it's another thing entirely to be vulnerable. To be vulnerable is to risk something. We all get to determine for ourselves, what does risk look like? Here with the 20, the gate 20, it's asking us to be present with the isness of who we are in places that are safe for us to do so. And safety being defined as sovereign awareness for and from. Thank you, Jay. Wow. Right. So we're not looking to not have any adverse experience or not have any challenge, because that's not how life works. And it's about being able to find the places where we can be in our growth stages, metamorphosis, presence. So in order to move through the gift of the 20, we first have to move through the goo of the caterpillar that's in its mid-transformation, or the crinkled up compactness of the dragonfly as it's trying to break out of the old nymph's shell. Right? So each one of those offers a little bit different flavor of a felt sensorial. I wouldn't even say that it's emotional. It's more sensorial feeling of, are you crumpled and deformed? Are you liquid? Do you move back and forth between those different states? Are there other states that you move to and from as your insights are turning into something that gets to be alive? That's the Mars energy right now. And so we're being we're being instigated in a sense by a feminine energy through Mars, right? So there's a little bit of a, oh, I don't know about all this, except that Mars is sitting in the 5th house, which is the house of pleasure. So where we have deep pleasure in life, whether that's through like connecting in moments like this, or sitting on a phone call with a friend, or having a beverage with a loved one while being someplace that you would both enjoy, that kind of pleasureness and that discussion, because this 20 is a throat energy. When we can talk about and move through our conflicts and our ruptures, and we can get to a repair or a move on, that really helps us move forward and move through the muck that's in the way, right? And Mercury being in retrograde is going to throw a fun little wrench in that process. And it may also be just the thing to shine a spotlight on the places that do feel a little weird, right? Things that are just a little weird and a little out of whack right now. And so being aware that all these different flavors in their multiplicity are influencing us is going, it's going to create and show and highlight, not even so much create, it's shining a flashlight on, shining a spotlight on our own multiplicity. Where can we more deeply come into a deep acceptance that we are made of multitude of stars, multitude of beings, multitude of energies? It really feels like Mars is here to show that to us right now. And Jupiter, our luck and our laws, we've got that in gate 35. Got that in the sixth house. Sixth house, our work, our health, service, our service, how we serve, how we step into. So Jupiter is already a little bit about like the work we put into the universe and then how it serves us back, right? And so, and now we're sitting inside of that sixth house, which is also about service. And we're sitting with the gate 35. Here we are in another Gemini energy. So we're looking at a multiplicity here. And we're looking at throat. So it's about how we're communicating again. Lots of talking language, talking energy right now. And it's about change and progress. This last expression of experiential energy. So it's like, been there, done that. There's a lot going on here. So it's an emotional experience that develops through engagements with other people, right? This is the energy of the adventurer. Our luck and our laws is being refined through adventuring into, it could be many different forms of thought. And here, in this case, a lot of forms of speak. Like, how do we speak? How can we speak in a way that feels like how we mean to say? How can we speak in a way that lets us feel safe to be who we are, given the amount of people that we are in front of? Not everybody likes us. Some people would mean you harm, and that is the state of the world at the time that we are in. And so 35 is in attunement to all of that. It's like, yeah, we don't like it. It's time for that to change. And this is the way that part of it is. Jupiter is also the gate of hunger. It's the key's shadow of hunger, the hunger of our species. It's the hunger to grow and become something more. It also comes with it this dilemma of self-indulgence, victim of a need for change. It wants something new, right? And it goes from being bored to being manic, right? Possessed by the urge to fill myself. I want to have a different experience. I need to be able to, I'm hungry for something that I can't do for myself. We might be hungry in the way of, how can I be of service? How can I take care of my family? How can I take care of my grandson or my community or my fire tribe or my women's group or how can I do all this? There's a freneticness. And when we can recognize that sort of possessed energy inside of ourselves that is very fueled hunger. Reminds me of the Hayao Miyazaki film, Spirited Away. The being that ate everything in sight and just became more and more hungry with every mouthful it devoured. And what it needed was to not consume. It needed to simply be in an unconditional way. Here they call the gift affirmation, I live unconditionally with an open mind. Where adventure is the inner space and the final frontier. I love little play on Star Trek and Star Trek isms in there. All right. So these last couple ones, we're beginning to enter into retrograde. So Saturn's going retrograde, or has been in retrograde for a little bit. It'll be there until November. And that's sitting in gate 22, like we were just speaking about with the moon, that openness, that moodiness. They say with gate 22, like if you wake up moody, just stay to yourself a little bit. Might be a good thing. You might find that other people rattle your cages in unfortunate ways, or that you rattle other people's cages. And we can't always do that, right? We live and we work with jobs and we work with people, and sometimes being aware of that in our own world. This is Saturn in the second house. So second house is our values. It's our worth. And so if our worth is feeling moody and we know that, then we can make sure that we don't let anyone else's assessment of our worth contribute to what's going on, right? We don't let ourselves be rattled by the ungraciousness that can happen with other people's actions, because people can be, well, not caring, not aware, right? This graciousness, being a victim of others' ungracious behaviors. It can be really hard if someone drives past you and flips you the bird and swears at you, and you're like, what the, that can be a beginning place of being a victim of others' ungracious behaviors. And so finding a way to flip that switch around and head back the other way and be in a place of an expansion with it, rather than letting it be something that rattles us. That's what Saturn is trying to teach us right now, and teaching us something about our own worth. I can feel that strongly in my world as I'm coming into playing with building up memberships and diving back into Alchemy of the Season School, and what am I doing next in these different places, and how do I get to honor and find worth in that process with what it is that I have to bring into the world, and with who it is that I am on the inside of all of this. I invite each of you to be able to look inside your world to see where we are being instigated. So Uranus, so many ways to pronounce these words. Fifth house. And so we've got the house of the cat, we've got the planet of Catalyst inside of the house of pleasure, inside of Aquarius, the new, the technological, the new advancements. And we're looking at this in relationship to mediocrity, style, exquisiteness, the influencer, another throat energy, another Gemini, Taurus Gemini, contributions, promotions, walking its talk, deploying one's individuality for the benefit of the group. And so this is the Uranian energy. This is the thing that's opening up the doors and barging in and going, let's do something new. That's a lot of da-da-da, right? And it can also come with a bit of a melancholy about nobody paying attention, not being able to have the kind of impact that one might want to have. And we've got Neptune, our spirit work, getting ready to go into retrograde. Actually, it just did, July 2nd, a couple weeks ago. Third house. I'm still memorizing and dancing with. Some of them I know really well, and some of them I'm still tuning into. Mental activity, learning, siblings, communication. Okay, so that's like that second layer out, just past our worth, right? It's how we relate with our mind and the world around us, how we take information in that can affect our worth and our core. And that's sitting in Pisces. So it's ruled by Pisces and it's in Pisces, Aries. This is our G center, our center of direction. Gate 25, love of spirit, naturalness, being love. This is the one gate that a rock has this gate. An animal has this gate, a bird has this gate, reptiles have this gate, a stone has this gate. All things that exist have this gate. It's an innocent disposition that manifests itself perfectly in its naturalness. Its very presence is its isness. Individuality, individual channel. Melancholy over feeling lack of love. When you see things around you, give them love, even if you don't think they can feel it, because you know what? I would say that even a stone can feel melancholy over feeling lack of love. And it might not be the same way in which we feel those things. And if we can have a sense that all things that have matter carry a frequency, and all things that carry a frequency have connectability, then it's not hard to imagine that everything has an innocence to it, and that everything has an ability to accept and receive love. if we can have the courage to simply feel fear, to let ourselves feel it and let it move through us, where we can accept. And we're not in a place of avoiding looking at our own pain. Shadow affirmation of this gate 25 is, I am not able to look at my own pain. You hear that sentence, what does it make you feel? It's an entrance to a rabbit hole that can lead you inside of your world down into, what is it that I'm so afraid of? What is it that would keep me cold or ignorant inside of places where I would rather be in a place of acceptance? Where am I finding myself in a place of constricted breathing, where it's difficult to take deep breaths in or difficult to release the breath? It's a deep exploration to consider, is when we get stuck in deep emotion, or when deep emotion overtakes us, and or if we are numb to emotion. So any of the extremes around emotionality in the solar plexus, basically, we can find, if we look for it, where we have constriction in our breathing. We might find that when we are by ourselves and we are feeling sort of flat or dull, we might find that it's difficult to take we find ourselves pausing at the end of an exhale and not breathing back in. If we are a person who runs through many things in our world in a day, and there are many things being asked of us, we may find that we hold our breath, and then it's difficult to like really let out that breath and let the whole of the being just relax. We might find that we cycle between both of those things at different points in time. It's all about constriction, right? It's where we hold on to this energy that is it's not love. Right? The dilemma is anxiety. And that's our spirit work right now, is to find our anxiety, to move through the ignorance and the coldness that can come from constrictive breathing, and find our way into a place of acceptance, of accepting love, where we have the courage to simply feel the fear. We then have that ability to be able to tap into that universal love, transcending the suffering of humanity by accepting the suffering of humanity and not dying with it or dying because of it. Codon ring of humanity. It's our physiology, is our heart. So this can be where we experience heartbreak. Mineral, the diamond. What is the precursor to the diamond? But coal. And coal is made into diamond through time, pressure, and heat. So when we think about ourselves being put under pressure, being put through the fires of transformation, and having to experience time for integration, this is what it takes to grow love inside of ourselves. It's the lion, salmon. Mm-hmm. So yeah, our spirit work is, like no small business right now. In fact, it's touching on every single thing. And Pluto, this last one here. So there's Pluto and Chiron. So Pluto is our underworld, and Chiron is our wound, right? So our underworld is always going to end up poking our wound, and our underworld is where our spirit work is going to lead us to. So Neptune leads us to our Pluto. Let me just pop up here for a second and show you kind of a flow. Uranus cracks the door open. Neptune walks us to it, to our underworld. Pluto is our underworld through which we get to meet our wound. We've already walked through the communication tool. We've gotten we've picked up our love and our values and refined those pieces. We've had enough conflict and growth to see where our rupture repair process is. So we're not too soft and gooey. We're nice and honed and disciplined. Jupiter gives us our luck and our laws to be able to navigate. And Saturn goes, are you sure you packed everything? And then Uranus cracks open the door. Neptune walks us to the underworld. The underworld goes, what's due? What's the hardest thing that you have next to do? Let's do that. For the sake of being able to heal our wounds. So Pluto sitting in Pluto is ruled with Scorpio, ruling with Scorpio. We're sitting with, that's Pluto sitting in our first house. First house is what we look like. So right now, if you look around at everybody, everyone visually, and I've played with this because I've looked myself in the mirror a couple times and been like, wow, I look really tired. Oh God, look at these bags under my eyes, you know, and I just kind of, you know, will feel like in the morning, I kind of look a little bit like a walking death. Well, Pluto's in our first house. It's all about what we look like, what we come off like. And so we are showing our underworld on our outsides. And it's about accepting of it. It's about accepting the realisticness of it. It's deliberate, practical evolution. Oh, this is what mine looks like. Okay, what am I doing with this? Where can I have a deeper understanding and a deeper relationship with it? And remember, the underworld can be an interesting place. Not everything in the underworld has our best interest at heart. There are energies with invidia and envy. Thank you, Lisa Weaver. There are energies that seek to corrupt. There are energies who seek to control. Just as much light as there is dark, right? And we're looking at the underworld, so that's a lot of where the darkness is. And so looking at that darkness inside of ourselves, seeing it on our faces, seeing where it is that we, and this is root energy, this gate 60. This is root energy. So it's where our drive is. Where do we have a drive that can sometimes not be the most supportive thing for ourselves? And where can we turn that so that it is? This is, we're talking about the guardians and the keepers of the wheel here. Melancholy about having nowhere to go can be a piece that plays a role in that. This is the cracking of the vessel. And so the underworld at this point in this gate 60 energy, especially in the first house, is looking at us and going, how can we crack this shell open? How can we crack this being open? Where's the limited thinking that's happening? Where is there an imbalance? Where is there so much structure, so much need for control, so much, I need it to be a certain way, before we will allow ourselves to be truly who we are, to be structuring led by common sense, to be the unique and balanced way that we're here to be, in whatever way that is. There's 64 different expressions of balance in here. It's not about feeling safe through rigid structure. It is about being structuring that's led by common sense. Trusting in the magic of divine justice. There's a lot of trust right now going into that with all the things that are happening inside of the world. Not even going to get into that in this place. That's not what this is for right now. It's also the energy of iron. And so when you're trying to tap into that kind of energy, you can work with that mineral, just straight iron. It's also the crocodile. So this iron can be a tool that you use maybe on your altar or in your meditation bag that helps you come into a place of going, all right, where's my limitations? What's my next? What's my next crossroads? Because at that crossroads is where you're going to find the wound. Whoops. Apologies. I clicked it into the wrong thing. There we go. We're back. That was fun. We're going on an adventure. Where our Chiron, where our wounded healer, right? So where our wound is, where our greatest wound exists in our world, is also the places where, when attended to and in a place of healing, you will not hear me talk about it being healed. When things are fully healed, we're probably not here anymore. So I see it as we are in a perpetual state of healing and growth, not ultimate perfection. So in this wounded healer, we're looking at the energy of fire. We've got Aries energy here. We're looking at, this is sacral energy. This is gate 42. This is about the energy of finishing things. It's about what is it that we need to collect? What is it that we need to harvest or glean from these experiences that we have been living our lives through? is Janus, the fertility of the mind. So Janus is the energy that looks both ways simultaneously. So it's looking at the past and it's looking at the future simultaneously in this sort of balanced way. They call this the nomad, letting go of living and dying. It's the shadow of expectation, the dilemma of disappointment. The victim of our own expectations that leave us in a place of grasping and or flaky, where we are expecting that life is going to go our way. And so we can look for our wound in the places where we want life to go our way and where we're pissed that it's not for whatever reason. And the gift that we can derive in this place is the gift of detachment, enjoying even experiencing disappointment. We can be fluid and flexible with what it is, like, oh, I can't do this thing, or this thing is not being allowed to me. What does that open the doors of possibility to on the other side of things? Wow. Right. And with that, I am going to call this complete for this time. It was wonderful to see you all. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Right. I have to stop the recording first before I come out of this. There we go. Mwah!